This is How to Heal, and it is part 4, which is going to be the final part of this series. I started with the physical principles, a lot of detoxification, regeneration, how that is done through revitalization of nutrient saturation and so forth. So I went into a lot of that in part 1. Then we switched over in part 2 into the emotional evolution, which is very vast. But in each one of these levels of the holistic construct, I am just touching upon the vastness of these subjects. So then we continued into emotion and the healing crises, and then went into how we move from within the emotional body, how we move from the level of pain into the mental body, how that is accessed. So today I'm going to go further on that in part 4, and then I'm going to finish with spirit. So that's the four parts of the holistic construct: the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. So today I'm going to read for you, for those of you who are finding this as a video and aren't aware that this goes with written material, you can find that written material on wholehealthcenter.com. I'll leave those first 4 parts as the on the site as the first 4 posts for a little while, probably, I don't know, a week or 2. So if you can't find them, if you're finding this video way off in the future, it's now March 18th, 2024, then you can just put the How to Heal in the search bar and they'll come up. Okay, so we'll start with the mental body encompassment of duality. When pain is felt, and that's emotional pain, intensified, loved, and released, self-forgiveness is necessary here. A window of awareness opens that you may not have experienced before. Inner sight of dualistic patterns will emerge for our edification. What will become clear is the attachment, or in brackets, the resistance, to one side of the duality, to the exclusion, more resistance, to the other. This is the entrance into the mental body. Often the first side we see is seen as virtuous. The virtue is the resistance. Judging as good, better, best, bad, worse, those are examples of how that resistance can infiltrate into what we judge ourselves as being very virtuous about. We often hear about the attachments that we have to not being good enough, or on the other side of that duality, but they're the same, they're different sides on the same coin. So yeah, so that's really, really important to know when you're going into the mental body and you're finding these sides. You might think you only have resistance to release on that side that you've judged as bad or wrong or whatever, but look very closely at the other side, because often that's where most of the resistance lies, and then it's really easy to go into the other side and find the what we would call the virtue vice duality, and then then we can bring that into a completion. One duality is presented at a time. The unraveling of our suppressed patterns and programs is directly related to willingness to see what is there and to release it. We are operating within a holistic construct. We just talked about that, but I'm going to go a little deeper here. Physical, which is molecular. Emotional, that's connected to the endocrine system. Also, that's how the physical and the emotional connect. The mental body, which interfaces electromagnetically in the brain. So the mental body is actually outside of time and space. It doesn't have anything to do with the mind or the brain, but the mental body does connect into our physicality, like I said, through the electromagnetics. Spiritual, is all things outside of this visible light spectrum. That's like, look at the night sky and that might be just 1% or less than 1%. We have no idea what, how vast creation actually is. What is a program? You'll often hear in my work, I talk a lot about programs and patterns. So I'm attempting here in very few words to describe what a program is. Programs are embedded in consciousness within the mental body. They are dualistic in nature. Examples: good, bad, peace, war, win, fail, superior, inferior, etc. We could go on and on and on. Everything in this dimension is actually dualistic. And then it also has that fulcrum point in the middle. Patterns develop through thought, word, and emotion that attach themselves to the program. It is unimaginable to think, and then in brackets, for those of us who have maintained empathy, that there are people in this world, even world leaders, who are so desensitized, lacking in empathy, that they can create wars that kill countless people. Nuclear bombs is a tremendous physical example of this level of psychopathy. The result of patterns is experienced in our projected reality. In other words, made physical, individually and collectively. If you contemplate this deeply, you may be daunted by the work that lies ahead. Self-responsibility in removing anything less than unconditional love from our subconscious, unconscious, is a tremendous work. I am not saying we are at fault for our experiences, neither are we in charge of manifesting what we want. There are so many influences at play. We see unfair experiences all the time in human experience. There are victims, perpetrators everywhere. What I'm saying is to remove the resistance so that we respond appropriately in any situation. We remove ourselves from the patterns of victim or perpetrator when we get to that duality and release a resistance that goes with both of those, okay? We're talking about clearing the mental body here so that we can respond and live in a more non-resistant, clear way. Non-resistance is not complacent. That's extremely important. People sometimes judge like to be non-resistant is just to be like, let's just pretend we're peaceful and we'll not make any waves, or we'll not say what we feel, or, we're just taking that non-resistant path. Let me tell you, that is not non-resistance. That is actually very resistant. And I'll say it again, non-resistance is not complacent. We don't stay, silent when we know that we should speak. Or, there's so many ways to look at it. There's so many ways that we'll find within ourselves, those layers when we're doing this inner work. When we resist experiences through denial of the part we play, easy to do since we are mostly unconscious, the gap of separation grows wider within the program. So that the sides of the each side of the dualistic part, with the more resistance we get, the further apart they get, and we have to bring those in. Basically, it's just more difficult to find it at all, to find either side. And when we find the one side, it becomes quite a bit more difficult for the other. So we just have to keep working away at it. This is what we find when access to the mental body presents itself one pattern at a time. Here we view what is there, where the resistance lies, and the separation it causes. Self-compassion is the loving energy necessary here. The violet fire, light, is the power to remove anything less than natural coherence within the mental body construct. It is available for us to direct as we encompass the duality that presents. At times, I see one side of the duality only. I feel the resistance there within the memory. As I encompass it with the violet fire, the other side makes itself known. At times, I see the need to go to that side and release resistance there. Eventually, both sides become clear. At this time, encompassment of the entire duality, the whole duality, what we've accessed on both sides, we bring that together as a whole, is held until completed. So held in that violet light, and it will present itself. If we are actually in the mental body, that violet light will be there as well. We'll be able to access that. We'll see it, and we'll be able to direct it appropriately. If you're wondering if you've been in the mental body, then you haven't, because it becomes extremely clear where we are when we get there. Hold a constant state of non-resistance or love, the loving vibration in the light of the violet fire, which is held in a constant state of awareness and direction. Just said that. Making it happen, letting it happen. Remember that past principle we talked on a previous day, simultaneously. This takes focused intent. When mental resistance is transmuted, an electromagnetic completion is felt, often with an inner flash of bright light. I've seen that many, many times. And when you have completed a duality within you, I should say the resistance to the duality within you, when that has been completed, that transmutation has been completed, you will see it in your daily life. You will recognize how things have changed. It's very interesting. The transmutation of the mental body is a natural progression with the willingness to do so, following the release of self-created emotional pain. There is pain in the mental body as well, but it is felt very differently. I'm sharing here extremely complex teachings in the least amount of words possible. And even there are a lot of repetition. I recognize that in this series, there's lots of repetition, and in most of my teachings, you'll find a lot of repetition, and that is really that is a necessary for it to really be absorbed and to be able to remember it. I come from a teacher who continuously repeated himself, and I found that very, very helpful, because when I needed it, when I was inside doing that inner work and I really needed to know what to do, I had it within me. I heard it so many times that and I'm forever grateful for that. Pardon me. Work diligently on emotional transmutation, and one day you will find the mental body. I got a tickle in my throat. Okay, so that's the bare minimum of entrance into the mental body. Okay, so now we're going to jump over to spirit. I previously stated spirit as being anything outside of our visible light spectrum. How vast this is. As we release anything less than pure unconditional love, and we are able to hold that vibration, we expand awareness and perception. This leads to further opportunity to see deeper resistance. This process incrementally restores our natural ability of inner sight, clairvoyance, inner sound, the clairaudience, inner feeling, clairsentience. With these restored, we traverse a broader spectrum of inner knowing. Clear intuition, not altered by chemical, intellectual, or spiritual interference or influence. In that, we are continuously faced with deepening our willingness to choose love ruthlessly. Discernment expands exponentially as we sort through intellectual ideas, beliefs, superstition, and interference. We will see those along in this inner path. We will see these coming at us, and it's to be aware of it and to be ever willing to apply the transmutation immediately if possible, and but at least making time daily to do that. This is a huge job to root out mental emotional imprints. This results in resensitization. The awareness of humility, empathy, and self-compassion all expand incrementally with the removal of resistance, particularly in the level of pain. You will find expanded awareness is initially painful, by consistently loving this pain without the need to suppress it results in continued expansion of consciousness. What we once knew as laws of physics become increasingly obsolete. In the word of Jesus Christ, he said something like, I mean, of course, this is all translated over and over and over and over and over again. The only thing that I repeat about what Christ Jesus had taught is principles that really touched me at some point in my life, that I was able to really feel, and that I'm able to, I'm actually able to practice, and they're very practical. They become very, very practical. So those are the teachings that I share. So he said something like, "Of this I do, you may do also, and more shall you do." I see this as his ability to break through the program and patterns of this dimension to the point where he expanded the light quotient morphogenetically for all humanity. He made this expansion possible by showing the way, recognizing the higher power, God of love, that all humanity has access to at all times within, is crucial to making our way out of discordant energies. There is a right and there is a wrong. Release ourselves from our attachments to both, where then we can naturally do what is right without arrogance and self-righteousness. That's a huge job. We start looking deeper and deeper and deeper in how we judge, you know, a million times in a moment, how we judge even that right and wrong, that good or bad, you know, those really, you know, those energies that we have slotted and put everything into. So, you know, to unravel that and transmute that takes a lot of effort. Remember, we transform from physical to emotional, emotional to mental, and the combination of all three to spiritual. We don't leave any of them behind. It's very important to have all the physical components, you know, as we're accessing higher, you know, the mental body and into the spiritual realms, where we're actually, you know, opening up into greater light realms. We are still holding our physical body in the, you know, the greatest of honoring and providing it with everything that we possibly can do. And, you know, and using those principles as well, those principles of maintaining the breath, maintaining the stillness. Those principles get us where we want to go. So the combination of all three into spiritual, the opposite way that we incarnated. That's very important. The opposite way that we incarnated. Through uncreation, releasing resistance through conscious effort of transmutation, which is permanent change, we find the true nature of reality, which is present always. Pure unconditional love has no opposite. This is the main transmuting force within emotion, held strong in the mental. It's held strong in the mental while we release the attachments there. Remember, physical principles are the foundation. You go back to day one, part one on that. I see it as an upward spiral from physical to spiritual. So the physical is like that. And then as we are expanding our consciousness, that spiral just keeps going up and broadening. Experiments that are called the time-space continuum warp and zero ohms resistance are taught in the out-of-print books by Dr. John Whitman Ray. They're free of charge in the link below. I put the link on that page. I recommend downloading and or printing. Yeah, if they disappear off of what I have put them on, I don't know where you're going to find them. I recommend downloading and printing. When you have read all three, I'm happy to discuss my experiences of these events that are brought about by fierce willingness, supported by extreme physical discipline, emotional freedom, and mental focus. And by emotional freedom, I don't mean that you don't feel any longer. You have more access to your feelings. You have more access within the emotional body, but without the resistance, we don't have the reaction. So you have the access without the reaction. which makes the emotional body just this very fluid, beautiful process. These experiences are often considered spiritual as we access the otherwise unseen. We must be free of psychotropic drugs for clear, accurate inner vision and perception to be possible. The clear inner vision and perception to be possible. So by that I mean, these ayahuasca trips and the frog medicine and whatever people are doing to create that inner, I don't even know what to call it, chemical, to create that chemical soup to, have vision, have inner vision, but then when they come back to their natural consciousness without drugs, then they can't access that inner vision any longer. They may have memory of it, but they can't access it. So they need drugs. And I know people that are doing this weekly. So that is not what I'm talking about. That's releasing all of that, even the THC, alcohol, tobacco, anything that we are doing that disrupts the natural chemical components within our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies. All of those things have to be released in order to have the true clear access to the higher dimensional visionary experiences. And by visionary, I mean you are aware of them in your internal vision, in your internal process. You are very aware of what is going on, completely aware. So yeah, so there's the link there to the books. And life is such an adventure. Receive its love, grace, and see its beauty. This completes this 4-part series on how to heal. So I'm happy to answer questions or have conversations. It's a great way to do that is on the Holistic Self-Healing group page that I am active on Facebook. And you can do it also on the comment section on my website, but that's not accessing a lot of people. And of course you can share it. You can, share it if you think this is information that your friends and family are interested in. Please share it. This is a free series. There's nothing, there's no copyright. There's nothing. Everything that I write is free for sharing. And there's even my books that you can, little booklets. I have a couple little booklets on Amazon, and even those I have somewhere on my website as a PDF that is, if people do not want the hard copy, they can find it there on my website free of charge. So that's where I'm going to leave it for now. That you can maybe listen to that spirit part a little bit over and over, not a little bit. You can do it over and over and over because there's some very intense information in there. And like I said, go to those books. If you're really interested in this inner work, go to those books and just read through. They're to be read in sequence, as the name suggests, and read them through. And like I said, I am happy to have a conversation and answer questions about the time-space continuum warp and zero ohms resistance. I've experienced it many times in my life. And in the final visualization and consciousness course in Pennsylvania with Douglas Morrison in 2005, I registered on the galvanometers a total of 4 times at that time. So, we do it that way. So there's someone who is actually witnessing it on the on the galvanometer there, because when you're going through the time-space continuum or going into 0 ohms resistance, you are very aware of your physicality, and you're very conscious of your this dimensional reality, but you're also at the same time conscious of an expanding awareness. And the first time I went through it, I went through it in the VNC, I had to go through sheer terror. I had never felt that in any other times of my life, except when I would go through these doorways consciously and, directing it. Nobody took me there. I wasn't a victim to it. This comes after a great deal of inner work and transmutation. So it's, we're not victim to 0 ohms resistance and the time-space continuum warp. We are doing this very consciously, but there are energies that we have to go through and be extremely willing to go through those so that we can access that higher awareness, and that, bust that. I could just feel it when it was happening, like just kind of busting through walls and ceilings, and it just like things opened, and I could see, hear, and experience on a whole new level, and even accessing things that I hadn't been aware of before and hadn't seen before. So that's, just to give you a very, 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 very brief look at that. I think I do have a writing on my website too. I think if you just put in 0 ohms resistance, ohms is OHMS. It's actually an electrical term. So you can look at that too. It's very complex. You'll learn about it in those books. If you do have the undertaking of reading Logic in Sequence, you'll discover a lot more depth in what I'm saying. Okay, thank you. Oh, and I will add there, we can only learn so much. So all of this series, and plus the Logic and Sequence books, and that goes with anything we read or anything that we're learning, it's really to put it into practice. That's why this series is called How to Heal. It's really to take these teachings, put them into practice. It's the how to. So yeah, one step at a time. Thank you so much. And I don't know, this was inspired when I was in the desert a few weeks ago, this series. So I don't know what my next inspiration is going to bring, but I'll keep doing these videos. They're getting easier for me. Thank you. And love to all. I didn't mean to do that. To put the lower hand.